Now, it looks like Arsenal are closing in on the signing of Ricardo Calafori from Bologna. Before that, we was linked with Ferdi. Forgive me, people. I'm not even going to attempt to say his last name because one, I mean, no disrespect. And two, I should have went on Google and listened to how you actually say his name. So I'm not going to make a fool of myself. But before, like I said, Calafori, we were linked with Ferdi. I'm sure you would have attempted to see little clips on YouTube or WeScout, or obviously if you've got the means, look in the Turkish division. We've obviously seen him impressing for Turkey during the Euros. And Turkey, in my opinion, give or take between them and Switzerland at the time of making this vid, are probably the underdogs' favourites. Regardless, he's still coming home. Southgate's lifting that trophy. But on a serious note, where you look at Turkey, collectively, they're excelling. You know, they've got a number of great young attackers. Arda Güler's the poster boy. But the young left-back Ferdi has also been doing his thing. And I must admit, through, you know, cluing myself up, doing knowledge on the guy and whatnot, I must admit, I can see the links. Now, again, it's pretty safe to assume, provided the Calafori deal goes through, that our pursuit of a left-back or someone that's able to play at left-back as well as other positions is probably going to be put to an end. Of course, across the course of the summer, we have been linked with Scholarbet. I would have loved Jarell Hatto from Ajax. That seems like that isn't going to happen. We were linked with Ferdi, and it seems like the case where this is concerned is going to end with Calafori. But again, until that man signs for Arsenal, who's holding scarves around the training ground, wearing the shirt, saying he grew up watching Ian Wright, Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, Patrick Vieira, Tony Adams, Sol Campbell, the list goes on. We cannot count our chickens before they hatch. And I must admit, I can see why he would be drawn to Arsenal, specifically Mikel Arteta, beyond the obvious. Again, as we know, Turkey are flying during the Euros. They're only a couple of games away, really, from a Euros 2024 final, provided things go their way. And the Fenerbahce fullback has been enhancing his reputation, much like a lot of players. You look at Nico Williams, you look at Yalmal, you look at, obviously, Calafori, and there's a bunch of them. We all know Mikel Arteta wants to bring in another defensive addition. We all know he wants to bring in a left-sided centre-back, or a left-sided centre-back that's able to play left-back, or a left-back that's able to play centre-half, in which he's obviously a traditional left-back, but you get the point. Again, Mikel Arteta hasn't told me this, but again, where you look at all the journalists, the more credible journalists, you know, the Romanos, the Ornsteins, the Charles Watts, the list goes on, they all mention that Arteta is keen on bringing in a left-sided defender or left-sided reinforcements. Why that is, I'm not too sure, because on the face of it, it appears like we're well stocked defensively, but the reality is, you know, like, we're only one injury away from really crisis, in my opinion, or 1.5 injuries. If someone has to play on an injury and someone's out, we're in trouble. And where you look at Arsenal, I would say the season before the last one that's just gone, that was the first time where we looked equally as threatening and had some consistency down the right as well as the left. Now, as good as Arsenal's season was and all the talking points that provides, the left-hand side was shot. We had inconsistencies with who obviously is going to play left-sided in midfield, with Granit Xhaka's departure. Jorginho's got to look in. Partey's had injuries. Fabio Vieira and Smith Rowe haven't quite done the business in that regards. Obviously, where left back is concerned, you know, Zinchenko's had a couple of knocks, Tomiyasu's had a couple of knocks, Timber would have been a candidate. Unfortunately, he's injured. Kirill did get an opportunity, but I wouldn't say he's convinced. And I'm going a bit left and going off topic, but where you look at Martinelli's inconsistencies, and, you know, Trossard did very well, but is Trossard seen as an out-and-out starter with Mikel Arteta? Our left-hand side, and it's probably one for another video, looks a bit muddied, if I'm in my opinion. And, you know, you'd be doing several calculations to try and work out what's gone on, but evidently that would be an area we need to enhance and improve. Now, reports have suggested throughout the last month or so that where Ferdi Kadıoğlu, forgive me if I've got it wrong, from Fenerbahce is concerned, we've been linked with him. He's actually able to play left back and right back. Now, again, you look at our right hand side, Benjamin White, Timber, Tomiyasu could all play there. But, you know, in this day and age, it doesn't hurt your chances of being a great player if you can play multiple roles. The 24-year-old, you know, former Dutch youth international, now Turkish international, probably has impressed scouts, really, and probably has endeared himself to the Turkish faithful from a footballing perspective. In recent years, he's become one of Fenerbahce's best players, and he enjoyed a very fruitful 2023-24. Now, once again, by no means am I an expert on the player or Turkish football, but in an attempt to give you lot content and obviously clue myself up on the individual, into his profile. And I must admit, while I have no real concrete evidence, and I can't say I've watched 20 games from him, I must admit the vague knowledge that I've clued myself up on, I can see the angle, and he is quite intriguing. And if he's not signed for Arsenal, it'll be a great signing elsewhere. He's been linked with Borussia Dortmund, for example. Since signing for Fenerbahce, in 2018 for 1.4 million quid, after an initial period probably playing in their youth sides, the versatile player broke into the first team, and since then, every season that's gone on since then has risen in importance, people. Again, as I'm sure it goes without saying, Turkish football, let alone the international scene, Turkish football fans, it's a madness. Football borders on a religion. I live in North London. Green Lanes was popping when Turkey went through, and I kind of want them to go through again. But, you can't be on no silliness if you play for Besiktas, Fenerbahce, and them kind of clubs. It's a massive club where everything is going to be highlighted, people. And you need to cope with that pressure. And I think he's done well. And once again, endeared himself, people. He's established himself as a key player. He's been known for his versatility and adaptability. He's able to play in a couple positions, left back and right back. Early on in his career, he was an attacking midfielder. Now, as a fullback myself, we never end up here. You look at Zinchenko, Trent Alexander-Arnold. Nobody grows up wanting to be a right back. I wanted to be a striker. I did win top goal scorer in a couple of my youth sides, but clearly I wasn't clinical, if I'm honest with you. So yeah, man, he's taken those attacking elements to the fullback role, and in the modern day where I'm probably pushing propaganda and exaggerating a bit, but fullbacks are very important to the system. They're almost like additional midfielders. They have to still provide width. Evidently, they still have to defend. They have to be narrow and invert and run into midfield and do all of those kind of things, people. So I can see once again why we've been linked with him, people. I think he's got a great ability in tight spaces. He picks great passes in forward areas. He's extremely skilled with a ball at his feet, and is a skilled operator in that regards. And it's almost like his ball control. It's like Velcro or a magnet, really. As you would imagine, someone that's been schooled in the Dutch way of football or way of life from a footballing perspective, if I'm completely honest. He protects the ball well. He's got a good first touch. He's great in tight spaces, very good on the half turn, plays forward, plays with his head up, as silly as that sounds, very comfortable on the ball, has a lot of versatility in his skill set in terms of getting the better on his teammates, provides a lot of width, got a lot of engine, great, low sense of gravity, a decent strength, and he shows a willingness, despite not being the biggest of figures, he shows a willingness to get stuck in, if I'm very honest with you, and he's a bit tigerish in that regards. And again, people, you look at the time of making this vid, where he's concerned during this Euro 2024 campaign, at a point he created, he's the first player, or better yet, the only player to create 5+ chances, make 5+ tackles, 5+ interceptions, win 5+ duels, and complete 5+ take-ons. No player has created more chances from open play, people, and only João Paulinho of Portugal has won more duels than the defender. Paulinho won 29, he won 28. Where you look at him versus other fullbacks in the Turkish division, he was first for passes, first for key passes, first for accelerations, first for progressive runs, first for forward passes, first for deep completions, first for progressive passes, first for final third passes in the penalty area, he was also first. Successful attacking actions, he was first. While for dribbles, he ranked second. For shot assists, if I've never heard that before, but propaganda, second. Foul suffered, second. Through passes, second. Offensive duels, second. So he's established himself as one of the, if not the best fullback in the Turkish division. And for a fullback, those stats are quite promising, really. Now, of course, you want to hear about the defensive stuff, if I'm completely honest. And I'd say one evident area I've seen, I don't think he's got significant weaknesses defensively. I do think he can concede some silly fouls. Obviously, it's mainly due to height. I think he's okay in terms of aerial duels, but that's evidently an area that is, I would say, is a weakness of his. I think he's a very good passer, man, if I'm honest. And I think if Arsenal or anyone else was genuinely interested, he would be a quote-unquote low-cost squad player addition, and he's got a lot of durability. He rarely gets injured, people. And I do think, what coaches have to be alerted to is standout quality, which is ability to perform and play well in multiple positions, providing whatever coach with tactical flexibility. And he's also a good dribbler, if you didn't know that already, people. I like him a lot. In terms of cons, I think the timing of his tackles, as I've alluded to, could evidently improve. At 5'7", 5'8", again, I do think he puts himself around in the air for someone who's not the tallest, but this could be an area, people. And I do think he could improve and fine tune in terms of, his duels and not conceding silly fouls, people, if I'm honest with you. And I don't want to be snooty, but people might say, you know what, the Turkish division is not the greatest of leagues. It's not essentially a top 5 league in Europe, respectfully. But for a man that's contracted till 2026, with his stock rising due to his exploits in that division, and obviously for Turkey, it remains to be seen how much Fenerbahce will demand of him. He's been linked with Arsenal and Manchester United and Borussia Dortmund, amongst any other clubs, people. So you can see why, you know, when you look at the eye, using the eye test and using your eyes, and statistically, you can see that this is a 24-year-old with good general well-rounded abilities both in the defensive and offensive aspects, so you could see why he'd be linked, people. He also for non-penalty goals ranks in the 98th percentile, people, which obviously reflects his effectiveness in potentially finding the back of the net for a fullback, really and truly. So yeah, he shines offensively. His defensive stats are not poor. You know, he ranks in the 97th percentile, for example, for tackles, so he's quite a formidable presence in retaining and regaining possession and in all phases of play, if I'm honest with you. You know, he ranks high in the 97th percentile for clearances. Sorry, 60. He's in the 60th percentile for clearances. Where interceptions are concerned, he's 97th. So not in the 97th percentile. So there's a lot to like about this individual. Overall, man, I think it illustrates a player with a very comprehensive skill set. You know, has multiple layers and facets to his game, and able to contribute in the middle, defensive, and final third. And he's also made 199 appearances for Fenerbahce. So there's a level of experience. As I said, I do think Arsenal have moved away from him where Calafiori is concerned, but I could see the links. And if there is any spanner in the works for Calafiori, then I could, you know, I'm more warm into this potential signing. But that's just my thoughts, people. Don't forget to smash the like button, comment your own thoughts, subscribe, and all of that. Thank you for listening. On that note, peace.